Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 19 of 2021. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by MyBookie.ag. For a 200% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code ODDS200. Terms, conditions, and locations apply. If you'd like to help us out, sponsor the website and the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $24.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. My friends, we have a wonderful show for you today because we have Chris Farley from the oddsbreakers.com, not the actor, he's long gone, to talk about all of Friday's games. We're going to break every one down for you with some plays and some leans. Of course, any premium plays, we might just say leans for that because we obviously have to honor our premium subscribers, but there'll be a few free plays in there from me, and I'm sure you're going to get a few from Chris. After that, we have Erik Haslam from Haslametrics to break down the 2021 NCAA tournament. Can't wait for him to come on and discuss that. We're going to talk about some teams that are a little bit overrated and some teams that are a little underrated. Talk about how he filled out his bracket. Before we get to that, I have to remind you about our bracket challenge where we are giving away $500. All you need to do is retweet the podcast or write a 5-star review, take a snapshot of it, and send it to admin@theoddsbreakers.com. You are eligible to win top 3 prizes. And please feel free to share that. It's right on the front page of our website at theoddsbreakers.com. Please feel free to get in. It's some free money. We just want to give back to you guys, the listener. All right, we have a lot to cover, my friends. So without further ado, let's bring on Mr. Chris Farley from theoddsbreakers.com. And now I'm very excited to welcome for the first time to the show an up-and-coming handicapper who's given us a ton of winners at theoddsbreakers.com in the NCAA, UFC, NBA. He's doing a fantastic job. Mr. Chris Farley from theoddsbreakers.com. You can follow him on Twitter at ChrisRFarley1. Chris, man, how's March Madness treating you?
Well, just like we were talking about right before we started this, it can be overwhelming. It could be quite overwhelming because there's just so much. We have a lot of data points during the season, especially in conference play, on a lot of these teams, and when they face each other, you at least have some touch points about games before. But these are teams that maybe never would have faced each other like ever before, even out of conference play. So you really have to put some time in to look into it, and I hope I can bring some good angles today, but overall I'm excited. How can you not be? It's this, we finally have March Madness and the tournament is back.
Yeah, that's right, man. And you're doing a great job. So it is a little overwhelming, but it's also a ton of fun. And deep dive in these games is what we love to do. And we'd be doing it with nobody around us, right? This is just fun for us.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
First of all, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your name, Chris Farley. I'll tell you right now, my name is not normal by any means, Kiev. And a lot of people ask me, well, like Chicken Kiev, or are you from Russia? And I'm like, well, that'd be like being named Chicago from Illinois if I was from Russia. Right? And so I put up with that plenty of times. But Chris Farley was my childhood favorite actor. And you must get a little bit of a reference because that is your name.
Oh, absolutely. I was in, I can remember it like yesterday. I was in 6th grade when he passed. And of course, sixth graders are pretty, they're pretty cruel. So everybody was, making fun of me or just saying funny things in the hallways as I was walking by, like, hey, I thought you were dead. But still there's plenty of people who appreciate Chris Farley, the comedian, and what he brought to the screen. I mean, the guy had an immeasurable amount of energy in everything that he did. I mean, personally, although I love his movies, I loved him on SNL because I thought he was such a natural live entertainer. Like the Chris Farley show and all that stuff. But yes, I've gotten a lot of crap, because of it, but it is mostly good vibes because mostly everybody loves Chris Farley. So, not that I'm famous in any means, but I like to throw the Chris R. Farley in there just in case, just in case there's any confusion. The comedian never did any sports betting, as far as I know.
So if they say, you mean Chris Farley the actor or Chris Farley the sports bettor? Which
exactly.
What are you talking about? Oh, okay.
Right. Exactly.
Well, someday, man, you will get to there. But either way, it's cool that you have that name because it's definitely a talking point, and it's not like it's not completely abnormal by any means. So I had to ask you about that, but you definitely nailed the answer. I mean, nothing to be ashamed about being named after that man because that man brought a lot of happiness to people. And yes, his SNL stuff still runs through my head to this day. So good stuff there, man. Let's get into a little bracketology then, Chris. So I went through my bracket on last night's show. Who is in your Final Four?
Yeah, I feel like mine is a little boring. I filled it out and I wanted to, we all want to take a flyer out there or someone to really make a run. I have Villanova in my Final Four, and I could give you some reasons behind that. So that, Villanova is absolutely not a flyer because they're still always considered one of the better teams in the country, but they are a 5 seed. But then I have just 3 number 1 seeds. I have Illinois, Gonzaga, and Michigan. I think, 3 of the more consistent teams in the country. Obviously, Illinois can really hot at the end here. Maybe arguably the hottest team in the country right now. But I do like Villanova's. Their coach Jay Wright is he's buttoned up. He's the professional. I kind of think of the Heat in the NBA Finals in the playoff run. And the Lakers, maybe not that the Heat are a buttoned-up team, but they seem to really play good as a unit. I think maybe some of the teams that have great coaches, buttoned-up coaches, they're a little more stoic, are the ones that are going to survive. But then the 3 other teams, Gonzaga, Michigan, and Illinois, I just think are among the most talented and best coached in the country right now. So I really wanted to take Georgetown, but they would match up against Michigan eventually, and I can't take Georgetown over Michigan. But I really love the way Georgetown is playing. I think they could be pretty feisty. Also almost took a shot at UConn, but again, that's the same bracket in the East.
Right.
And I do think that Michigan's going to come out of that.
All right, Michigan. Yeah, and it's hard to pick against Michigan, and the whole issue with me is the Livers injury. And I guess you can say that about Villanova with Gillespie, but at the same time, if Villanova gets to the Final Four, you're just going to look at yourself like, well, duh. I mean, Jay Wright.
Right.
I mean, it's like, how do I miss that one? This Final Four might just show us the coaches, kind of where they come in. There's been a lot of chalk this year in winning the, certain pro sports leagues, with the Dodgers winning it and the Lightning winning and the Lakers winning. I mean, Tom Brady winning. I mean, that's all chalk, really. And would you be shocked if chalk wins again? Not really. I mean, this is what these coaches are here for. So good stuff there, man. And mine's not too different. I mean, I do have Gonzaga and Baylor on the top, but I have I think Illinois has got the toughest bracket quadrant by anybody. So I just picked Oklahoma State due to Kate Cunningham and Florida State due to Michigan's injury. But I'll tell you that right now, if for some reason Livers is playing and healthy, some miraculous reason that stress factor went away, I could definitely see Michigan being in that Final Four. Who do you have?
Absolutely.
Who do you have cutting down the nets then?
Oof, on this bracket in front of me, I've kind of gone back and forth. I want this to be Gonzaga's year. I mean, I feel like they've been streaking for such a long time now. Were they also undefeated last year? I forget. I mean, everything's a blur at this point.
No, I think they lost to BYU last year. I'll double check that real quick.
Okay. Yeah. I either want Gonzaga or Illinois to win. I think I think Villanova has a better chance to start getting hot than most people think, and it's because of their coach. It's because I think very highly of Jay Wright. And I've kind of seen that story before. If I had to pick, it would either be between those two, Gonzaga or Villanova.
Okay, well, there you go. And yeah, they did lose last year to Michigan once and to BYU once last year. So,
okay.
but dude, Gonzaga, I really want to see Mark Few in it for sure. So
yeah,
I'm on board with that one, man. Well, let's get into some of these huge games then for Friday. And we're going to touch on every single one of them because that's what we do. Obviously, if you have a play that's meant for any type of premium subscriber, you know that you can just say a lean or say nothing at all. But I do have some free plays that we're going to give out on this podcast, and I'm excited for it. We're going to start right away with Virginia Tech versus Florida. And this is close to a pick 'em right now. And I wrote the total at 137. And this game's being played at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Both these teams very fortunate to be in. I thought they kind of finished not so hot. At Virginia Tech, that early win against Villanova, I think, is what really helped them get in the bracket. Florida's win against West Virginia when they had that Big 12 weekend in January helped them. And I think there's a secret to beating Virginia Tech, and it shouldn't be a secret because their best player, Kevy Alumna, is the one that leads them in everything: points per game, rebounds, and assists. If you can stop him and just contain the rest of the team, I think that this team is very beatable. Now, on the other end of the spectrum here, Florida has been playing out of their minds when they lost Keontae Johnson a long time ago, and they've exceeded my expectations. But, this is an interesting spot for them. I think it's a pretty even match out. Florida is the better shooting team, 46.4% to 45.1%. And Virginia Tech's just a little bit more solid inside and defending, and as well as a rebounding team. So, to be honest with you, I have it at Pick'em too. Very close. I think I have Florida by like a point, but I have the total at about 140, so I lean to the over. Do you have any thoughts on that game?
I would agree with you about both teams, sort of the volatility of them. Which version are we going to get of either one of these squads? I don't have a pick. I guess I would lean Virginia Tech only because from their best or from their better games, I like what I saw a little bit more from them. Especially on the defensive side of the floor. That win against Virginia was a marquee one. That's a big one. That's a tough win. I would lean Virginia Tech at this point, but don't really have a strong play.
All right, man. Well, why don't we move on to a game in your quadrant, and I believe it's the Midwest one, is it?
Midwest, yep.
All right. Who's the first one for the Midwest bracket?
So I got Drexel in Illinois.
Okay.
So the line that I'm seeing now, of course, most of my lines are from Bovada, which is a very public book, as we all know. But I'm in Maryland, so that's what I go with for now. But so the Illinois is a 23-point favorite in this matchup, and it's pretty easy to understand why. Illinois is on an absolute tear right now. They have two finalists for the Wooden Award in Coffee Cockburn and Ayo. I'm not sure how to say this guy's last name, but Ayo Dosunmu. Yeah. That duo combines for almost 40 points per game. That's pretty impressive. And they're peaking at the right time, right? They're top 10 right now on KenPom in both defense and offense. They're almost unstoppable when they're guards. Like Adam Miller and Trent Frazier are making outside shots. And this is a tough one. I guess I lean Drexel with all that being said, only because this is, Drexel probably feels like they're playing with house money. This is their first bid since 1996. They are, it's likely that they're going to go into this game, shooting from the hip. Why not? They're playing one of the best teams in the country right now. At the same time, it's tough to actually make a play on Drexel because this is Illinois, an Illinois team that's looked unbelievable to end the season. The best play that I like here actually is the over. At least that's what I'm looking at for now. I'm seeing at 144.5 with a little bit of juice on Bovada anyway. And the reason behind that is mostly because Drexel starts this 6'8" James Butler at center. And to say that the Drexel Dragons have struggled in the front court would be an understatement. And this is a team that's allowing 55.3% of their opponent's points from inside the arc, so that's among the top 40 in that stat. They have only 45 block shots all season. So I think somebody obviously like Kofi Cockburn, he's going to take over in most games. I think he's going to have his way with James Butler. He's going to have his way with that front court of Drexel. He's going to be able to score at will. And because of the, some of the motivation that I would imagine Drexel will come into this game with, playing with house money, I think they're going to go for it. They're going to play as aggressive as possible, even though they do go at a rather slow pace. And I could see this, an over happening here. For me, at least, that's my strongest lean at this point.
No, fair enough. I mean, Drexel plays at a very slow pace at 64.2 possessions, but Illinois should be able to score at will. I mean, my problem with it is Illinois going to stop scoring at some point and just run the clock out at the end? And that's the biggest question for me about the total. So I have no play on this one. Let's move on to the next one here. We have Georgia Tech versus Loyola Chicago. The two teams that got screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia Tech, they won the ACC tournament. They're a 9 seed, and it's not like they were a 9 seed coming in my opinion. I think maybe I thought they were more of a 7 seed coming in, and I thought they would have worked their way up to a 5 or a 4 seed by winning the ACC tournament, but no. And they have to play Loyola Chicago, who is a top 10 KenPom team, and then somehow got shafted with the 8 seed in the same side as Illinois. So I've complained about this in quite a few shows already, so I'm going to complain about it one last time. But what I will say is I like Loyola a lot. But and by the way, I forgot to mention, this is a listener request from Mr. Patrick Backhouse. He wanted us to break down this game, so thank you, Patrick.
Awesome.
And it's just a big step up in class for Loyola. Krubrick is so hard to guard. I wonder if Georgia Tech's going to do their homework. I would have preferred it if Georgia Tech didn't win for this game. Now, of course, we wanted Georgia Tech to win because we had that future. But, I mean, just for this game itself, it would have been better them coming in a little bit more hungry. Now that they just got satisfied with that ACC title, it worries me a little bit. But to be honest with you, both these teams got robbed in their seeding. They should be, and they're going to be motivated just because of that factor. This is a low total for a Georgia Tech game. Georgia Tech can score some points. My question is there going to be some shooting disparities here because Loyola can play some defense here. Biggest thing for me, Missouri Valley Conference is overrated, in my opinion. Loyola lost handily to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not that good of a team. Loyola lost handily to Richmond. And then they kind of blow through the Missouri Valley Conference on a Northern Iowa team that's been down. Lots of injuries for, Drake. And look what happened to Drake. That was really unfortunate, And then you also had some injuries for Bradley. Illinois State was a bad team. Loyola tends to give up the ball and turnovers, 18.5% of possessions. So I'm playing Georgia State here, and so I'm going to put a couple stars on that one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I like that. So you and I are actually going head to head on this one. I put up the first article for the Midwest today, so there's 4 games that I analyzed, and this is probably my favorite game out of the Midwest, at least from the Friday games that we're going to watch, just because it's so interesting. I mean, so first of all, you have maybe the happiest coach of all time, and Josh, how do you say his last name? Josh Pastner.
Yes,
Pastner.
Yeah, Pastner.
His post-game interview after Georgia Tech won was amazing, by the way. So that, he's an easy guy to root for. He's a funny guy, seems like a great coach, definitely a player's coach. But then on the other side of the aisle, I just learned, Kiev, that we're going to have a vaccinated Sister Jean who's going to be on the tournament for the Ramblers. She's going to be on the floor. So those
101 years old, Sister Jean, Chris.
I think so. Yeah. So talk about 2 enigmatic figures on the floor that everyone's probably going to want to cheer for. But that aside, jokes aside, this is a really interesting handicap for me because I really like the angle of Loyola Chicago feeling disrespected, being in the number 8 or number 9. I guess they're the number 9, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I believe they're number 8 and Georgia Tech's number 9 seed, but
Right.
Loyola is number 9 on Ken Palm. So there's that.
Right. So Loyola Chicago, according to Ken Palm, they're number 9. According to Haslam metrics, number 18. I think they have to feel disrespected. Maybe this is a little bit of inherent bias because I want them to win. But a lot of stuff you already said, I really agree with. I mean, Cameron, I'm trying to find his name.
Krubrick.
Yeah, Cameron Krubrick he's an impressive dude. I mean, this is a guy that has been averaging. So over the 4 years that he's played at Loyola Chicago, he averages 59% from the field in his 4 years. I mean, that's a pretty incredible stat. He reminds me of Jokic, for the Nuggets in the way that he kind of passes the ball around. He sees the floor, he steps up and takes picks for others. He's just a great centerpiece for that offense. And like you said already, the Ramblers play fantastic defense. I know that Georgia Tech has been hyper efficient on the offensive end. Then you also have Lucas Williamson, who's a star on the Ramblers defense. This is a Loyola Chicago team who doesn't foul a lot. They rebound at a high level. And again, I like the spot because Georgia Tech has kind of come into this game a little fat and sassy. They just won the ACC tournament. Great wins. They're on. They're surging right now. But I could see this not necessarily being a letdown spot, but maybe them undermining a little bit what Loyola Chicago is going to bring to the table. I agree with you about that conference, but I'm actually leaning the Loyola Chicago side -2.5. I think didn't this start at -2? I believe it went up a notch.
I seen it at 3, and then it went down to 2, and then now it's around 2, hovering in different books. It just matters. So you like that side, I like the other. That's good. I appreciate your honesty, man. And it probably beat that one down enough. One thing I will say is that both teams here in interesting spots, and I would have liked it a lot better if Georgia Tech didn't just come off that massive win, which makes this a potential letdown spot, even though it's the NCAA tournament, in my opinion.
Right.
Colgate versus Arkansas. Arkansas is -9. The total is 162.5. Patrick Backhouse also wanted us to break down this game. I think that this is going to be a better game we expected, right? And I think the spread's kind of telling you that. The spread's not in double digits here. Colgate is just in an inferior conference. I mean, the Patriot League, come on, right? But they have Cinderella stamped all over at the same time too, because I like how they shoot. 5th in field goal percentages at 49.9. Their defense has not been bad at all, ranking 37th in opponent field goal percentage at 40.8. Now, some of that was because of the Patriot League, right? But the thing is that Arkansas plays so fast. If they're not hitting, they're going to give Colgate some extra possessions there. Colgate's a good rebounding team, ranking 17th in the league. Arkansas, I think, ranks around the same thing. But even though Arkansas is a complete SEC team, I am concerned that they could come out cold and Colgate could jump them, making it very hard for Arkansas to catch up, especially if they're coming off those high ball screens. So, great shooting team, Cinderella written all over them. I'm taking Colgate here, plus the points, my man. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I really like that insight. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit of a public guy on this because I can't remember. I don't think I ever handicapped or wrote anything about Colgate this year. But just listening to you and looking at a few things behind the scenes as you're talking, I could absolutely see what you're saying, and it kind of makes me want to take a first half play on Colgate. I'm seeing it at 4.5. If they come out, a little more on fire, and Arkansas is, undervaluing them as a formidable opponent, I kind of like the first half a little more. I can see Arkansas, which is they're a very complete team. A lot of people don't know. I believe Arkansas led the SEC in points per game. So they're a pretty damn good offense as well as their defense. Mm-hmm. I could see them flexing a little bit in the second half and learning a little bit more about Colgate. Kind of like that first half line a little more. This is a really high total too. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, it is. I have the game 83-78, and I think it's just because Arkansas plays so fast, and Colgate will play fast as well. I mean, these two teams are not going to play a ton of defense. I know Arkansas ranks better on the defense, but once these guys get going, there's going to be popping threes. That's just how they play, popping threes and trying to get rebounds, right? And so, Colgate, in my opinion, is live just for a Cinderella type story. But at the same time, if they're not hot, they're going to speed their way into a big defeat, right? They could lose by 20 points if they're not hot. They rank 72.5 possessions per game adjusted to the average, which ranks 25th in the nation. So that's fast, right? And Arkansas ranks 17th in the nation at 73.1. You don't want to take any unders on these two teams facing each other because the speed is just going to build off of each other. So I guess my numbers probably favor the under by a point or two, but man, that'd be a tough one to take. So in my opinion, I'm probably going to stay away from that total in the 160s. You're not going to be a rich man if you're betting a ton of overs in the 160s, but I think Colgate's live here, and I think it's going to be fun to watch this one too. Colgate, there's just a couple options that can happen. Colgate could literally jump and win this game, and they could lose this game by 25-30. So sprinkle that money line as well. Let's move on to the next game then. And who's next in the Midwest bracket? I think, would that be?
I think it's Tennessee and Oregon State.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so this is probably my least favorite of all the games that I'll be covering, only because neither team really impresses me that much. Tennessee has been up and down in the SEC. Of course, they do have to face some fantastic offenses, so their defense is probably pretty legit. I think they're ranked. They're up there in the rankings on KenPom. They're probably something that Oregon State hasn't seen yet. Something that I was looking at here is, USC is probably the best defense that Oregon State has faced all season, in conference play. They stuck by them in one game and won, because they slowed down the game's tempo. But I don't really know what to take from that because I don't think very highly of the Pac-12 and the offenses out there. But just, something to think about. There are 45 better offenses in the NCAA tournament than Tennessee. Tennessee is not a great offense. They're pretty average. Then again, Oregon State, there's 43 better offenses according to KenPom in the NCAA tournament. So I guess I would lean at the under here. The Volunteers defense should also be too much for Oregon State. I don't think that Oregon State has faced the defense quite like this. Tennessee is also ranked 233rd in tempo, so they go at a pretty slow speed. I think that's going to, the Beavers played a pretty slow speed too, but I can see Tennessee controlling this game because of their defense. I'm trying to find, the typical defense that Oregon State has faced during the year is not great. I think they're listed at 80, and you're talking about here on KenPom, Tennessee has one of the better defenses in the country. I have that listed somewhere. Bear with me. They're ending the season as the fourth best defense in the country. If I would have to lean, I would lean Tennessee -7 because of that. I don't think this is anything Oregon State has seen. And Oregon State, even though they won the Pac-12 championship, they've been so up and down. I think this is a difference in class. And in general, I like to fade the Pac-12.
All right. Well, I don't disagree with fading the Pac-12 at all either. But the problem for me in this game is that Tennessee coach Rick Barnes is 7 for 17 against the spread in the NCAA tournament since 2006. And he's really one of the worst tournament coaches in all of the NCAA. I mean, he does great in the regular season, and I don't know what he's telling these kids. Maybe he's yelling at them or something, but they're just not performing like they should be, right? Oregon State stole an at-large bid, and it was really cool to see that. I love it when teams steal at-large bids, and then I complain about the teams that don't get in. Isn't that fun? Vicious circle, vicious circle right there. But Oregon State played some really good defense down the stretch, and that's why they won. But what is the Pac-12 is my question. I'm going to lean Oregon State just because I'm getting 7.5 points because I think I have them winning by 6. I lean to the under because I have it at 131. 68-63 is my score in this one. Let's move on to the next one then. We have Utah State versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech is -4.5. The total on this is 131. This game's an interesting smaller conference versus Power 5 to me because Utah State for a while had my interest. I thought they had a shot to win the Mountain West until San Diego State woke up. Utah State has the height and rebounding advantage here, and they're a good passing team. But that's really about it. I mean, the Red Raiders have been a very good tournament team the last few years under Chris Beard. The issue with Utah State is that they turn the ball over a ton, 19.6% of their possessions, while Texas Tech ranks 8th in defensive turnover percentage. That means there's going to be a lot of steals, and that's when this game can get really away from Utah State. So if Utah State's 7-foot big man Ninius Keita is if he gets going inside, then Texas Tech could be in some trouble. But I think Texas Tech has faced a lot of tall guys in the Big 12. I mean, they're going to be facing a Mountain West team here. Mac McClung is really the secret sauce behind Texas Tech this year. If he has a good game, then Texas Tech, I think, wins by some margin. I have Texas Tech just by the numbers, winning 67.5 to 63 here. So I'm pretty close to the spread, unfortunately. But I mean, if it gets a little lower, I'll play on Texas Tech. Any quick thoughts?
Only that the experience piece, I think, is a really good one that you mentioned. 4.5 just off the top of my head feels a little low. Texas Tech, I think, can cover that number. A lot of people don't realize that the Mountain West is actually, it's a pretty good conference. With San Diego State and Utah State and Boise State and all them. So I think highly of Utah State, but they're not on the same level as Texas Tech. So I'd have to lean the Texas Tech side as well.
All right, fantastic. What do we have next in the Midwest brackets?
Okay, I believe we have Liberty
versus Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is another really good one. I like this one a lot. Only because I think we're getting too many points here with Liberty. Liberty is an all-around solid team. They're good shooting. They're good on defense. They play hard. They're well coached. Obviously, the ASUN Conference champions. Not that means too much to anyone, but it means something perhaps. They're third in the nation in points allowed per game. They've won 12 straight. They grab 31 rebounds a game, which is a good amount. The thing that stands out to me here, and I'll get to Oklahoma State in a second, is that I don't think the Flames are going to be that intimidated by this spot. They're 4-0 ATS in their last 4 as an underdog. And they've been here before. In 2018, they were the 13th seed as well when they promptly knocked off number 4 Mississippi State. I really like their coach, who's a disciple of Tony Bennett from Virginia. I think he has his kids playing really well. That being said, I really, really like Oklahoma State. I liked what they did at the end. I think Cade Cunningham, who I believe is a projected number 1 NBA pick, he averages over 20 points per game. Is going to be really tough for them to stop. He's probably going to be the best player in most games that he's in. But I still have to lean the Liberty side. This is probably going to be like a 1-unit play for me because I could see Liberty just being more motivated, more on fire in this contest, probably not seem like they can play with the big boys. But Liberty brings a really good team to the table here. I think they're better than they're getting valued for. And Oklahoma State, coming off their hot streak, I think, they've had some really good wins as of late, right? They beat Baylor, West Virginia twice, Texas Tech twice, Arkansas. But I like the spot and a little bit of a shock. I think the Liberty plays this game closer than people think.
Well, Liberty does play slow, 63.1 possessions per game, which is good for tournament teams because the Dogs tend to cover more when they play a slower game than a faster game in the NCAA tournament. Kyle Hunter has the numbers on that, actually, and he's mentioned it a few times. It's up there like 57 to 60% or something like that. I love how Liberty ranks 4th in the nation in effective field goal percent, right? 57.4%. That's really good. But my question is, how good is the Atlantic Sun Conference? I'm not sure. It didn't seem to do that well in the non-conference. And Liberty, when they stepped up against competition, they did get blown out by Purdue. They lost by 9 to Missouri. They even lost to TCU. So I think a good play is to lean the under. I'm going to take the under 142 here for probably a 1.5 stars. Maybe it's going to be 1 star, 1.5 stars. I'm not going to make that official yet, but I am playing it for at least a star for you guys to know. And that number might creep down a little bit too, just because if Liberty has trouble scoring against Oklahoma State, they're still going to play a slow game. They're not going to adjust. And Oklahoma State is going to slow the game down at the end if they're winning by margin here. So I'm going to take the under for a star at least. Next game we have, going back to the South bracket anyways, Wisconsin versus North Carolina. North Carolina is about -1.5-ish. The total is about 139, I believe. And let me see here. Man, I hate talking about Wisconsin, Chris. I mean, this is my team, right? And they have really, really disappointed thus far this year. And they have it tough because they're in the same side as Baylor, and Baylor is just a force. Well, either of these teams is going to have a very hard time, even if they beat each other. In my opinion, North Carolina is a terrible shooting team, and they turn the ball over a ton, right? They turn the ball over 20.5% of the time, and Wisconsin's buttoned up, right? They don't turn it over a lot. So if Wisconsin can get some turnovers, and if Wisconsin actually can hit some threes, I can see Wisconsin winning this game by a lot. But at the same time, if Wisconsin's not hitting the threes, they are not getting any rebounds, and I can see North Carolina cleaning up, getting the easy, putbacks on their offensive rebounds and blowing out Wisconsin. This game, to me, just to make it quick, I'm not going to have a play on it because I think it's going to be a blowout on one side. I'm just not sure the side, Chris. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really, really thought that North Carolina was going to beat Florida State in the ACC. The semifinals. I was disappointed by that. I think when they're surging, kind of what you alluded to, they're an emotional team that's either, I love the way they were surging there for a little bit. But then they're a little too volatile. I do think they have the better coach. Maybe that's kind of obvious, but
it should be.
Should be. But you never know who's listening. But I want to go with the North Carolina side here because and I was actually looking at them as a player to go far in the tournament. Just because of some of the experience that they bring. But this game, I don't know what to expect from Wisconsin either. So this is not something I'll play.
All right, man. Let's move on then because we have about 10 minutes left. Who do you have next?
I have Houston and Cleveland State, and I'll make this one pretty quick. I don't see, to keep it simple, I don't see how Cleveland State is going to keep up here. Let me just find a few of my notes, make sure that I'm on par. The closest team to what I saw Houston played that's, similar to a Cleveland State-like team will be Cincinnati. They were ranked 151st on offense with the 53 ranked toughest opponents. Houston beat Cincinnati once by 37, once by 38. Cleveland State ranks 199th on KenPom in adjusted offense, and that's against the strength of schedule that ranks 337th on defense. Houston is very efficient on offense. They can clamp down on defense. I just don't see, this is a 23-point line, I believe. No, it's a 20-point line, what I see in front of me. I just don't think that Cleveland State's going to be able to keep pace unless there's some kind of lack of motivation there for Houston or unless they start pulling players in the second half or something. I think this is a easy blowout, and as evidenced throughout the year, Houston has no problem blowing teams out.
No, they don't, and they showed that against Cincinnati on Sunday. I'm not going to spend time on it. I have Houston winning 76-57. Okay. So the question is, does Houston slow it down do they want to embarrass the teams like they've been doing in their division in their conference? I don't know. It's just too many questions in this game. Just because I have it at 19 points, it doesn't mean I'm going to take a dog at 20.5. I mean, this is not a spread of 3. This is a spread of 20. Same rules as football. If the spread gets a lot higher, you need a much higher difference from your number to the Vegas line. So in my opinion, I'm just going to pass on this one then. All right, next game. I think I did skip over one or two of them here too, just scrolling around. Oral Roberts versus Ohio State. Ohio State's going to be laying minus 16.5. The total is at 156 here. And I mentioned in a show earlier, wouldn't it be nice to get Oral Roberts versus Colgate in the Sweet 16? Kind of like a dental matchup, right? Like a periodontal mess, let's call it. Maybe it would be the quick eating sweets 16 or the don't forget to floss 16 or something like that. I always found these two names extremely funny, but this is a high total, man. 156.5. Oral Roberts is a great shooting team. They also play fast. They're kind of like Colgate in that way. 71.8 possessions per game. Oral Roberts hits threes at an 11th best, 38.8%. It's pretty good, They also shoot a ton of them, though. They make up 46% of their shots is their 3 points. Ohio State, they're going to have good ball pressure to stop them from scoring. And I think Ohio State does have that in general, but they didn't in the Big Ten. Ohio State ranking 4th in the Big Ten on in offense, but their defense ranks only 79th on KenPom, 10th in the Big Ten. And they only guard the 3, 285th in defensive efficiency there. So that's not good. I don't like how they defend the 3. I'm sorry, 191st on KenPom at defending the 3. So Oral Roberts doesn't play defense at all, and they're the ones that rank 285th on defensive efficiency. So either way, this is why the total's high, and I agree with it. This could be an overplay for me, but right now I'm just going to lean Oral Roberts because there's just a lot of points in this game for a team that can score really well. Anything quick on this game, Chris?
I got nothing to say on this one. I'll just agree with you. With everything you said.
All right, let's pass on. What's the next one for you? I'm seeing possibly Rutgers versus Clemson.
Yes, sir. So this is a low total, 126. I got Rutgers as a 1-point favorite, and I'm actually going to lean towards the total here. Not sure if I'm going to make that a play or not, but I'm going to lean on the under, I should say, for the total. Both of these teams struggle on offense. They have better defenses. I lean a little bit on Rutgers as well because it feels like they're playing with house money a little bit too. They've been the last time they were in the tournament was 1991. So in case anyone's counting out there, that's 30 years, and they've been in 4 different conferences since then. So it's been quite a journey for Rutgers to get back to the tournament. So I could see them just being very excited to be there, throwing up shots, maybe even just playing with more motivation and fire than Clemson. Clemson has been so up and down this year. I bet on them and lost a few times, and maybe I'm still a little upset about that. But Clemson plays at the 6th slowest pace in the tournament. Rutgers also plays below average at a below average pace. I would have liked if this was at Lucas Oil Stadium. Of course, it's not really a marquee matchup, so I guess it wouldn't be. This is going to be at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. I listen to Kyle Hunter all the time talk about the differences in the arena and the environment and the effect that they can have on totals. So I would have liked it if it was at a bigger arena, but I still like the under for me because I feel like postseason play is going to favor the defenses anyway. Both teams play at a methodical pace, and they favor their defenses. And we've seen a lot of these later or these postseason conference tournament games fly way under in those types of situations.
All right. No, I agree with that too. I lean Clemson in the under. And the reason I lean Clemson, and I hated doing it because I first leaned Rutgers. I'm serious. I was first on Rutgers before this. And then I just realized that Rutgers' weakness is shooting the 3, and that's how you beat Clemson. Clemson has a pack line defense. They pack it in, and then when teams are beating them, they're launching 3s and hitting them. But Rutgers ranks very low at shooting 3s. So that's what worries me. But at the same time, I'm not betting this unless it gets to 3. I'll lean any single dog in this situation at 3. I have Clemson win the game by 1, like 63-61 or 62-61, something like that. I'm in between those numbers, like 62.5. So I agree with that one, man. Probably staying away. And, I agree with the under. Let's move on to the next game. Baylor versus Hartford. Hartford's minus 26, and the total is at 140 here. I do have a play on this one for everyone. This is the biggest spread so far, barring Gonzaga's matchup against App State in the powerhouses of Norfolk State here. So, Gonzaga will be favored by 30, right? So, this is second. Baylor, I don't love how they finished their season, but they do have some serious upside in the tournament itself. Hartford's offense is horrible, ranking 254th on KenPom, and their defense has a small breath of life, I guess you'd call it, at 124th on KenPom. But the American East Conference is pretty bad, and Hartford isn't even the best team in it because Vermont lost in their tournament. So I think this game is going to be about defense for the Bears because the Bears are pissed they lost the Big 12 tournament, and they mentioned their defense. They mentioned they're going to step it up, so they're going to stick it to Hartford. Hartford's not going to score 50 points. They're going to score below 50 points, right? I'm going to even give them 50 for my final number in the game, but the correct play is the under, and it's going down a little bit. I gave it out at, I think, 141. It's at 140 right now, and I see Baylor winning this game 80-50, but I also see Baylor slowing it down, just getting to the next stage because they don't want to get tired either. So I'll be shocked if Hartford actually scores 50, but I have this game 80-50 with a nice cushion to the under 140, and I'm going to grab it here, my man. Couple stars. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that angle. I was going to say this is going to be a wait-and-see game to see how Baylor looks in their first game back because you kind of ended the season a little rocky and up and down. But maybe this isn't a watching, just a watch game because they are facing Hartford. It's not like they're facing Oklahoma State again or something. So hopefully the motivation is there, but I'm definitely inclined to favor the heavy favorite here.
All right, my man. What do we have next on the docket?
Okay, I think we have. I got the games all mixed up on my end too, like schedule-wise.
No worries.
I think we have Morehead. No, I'm skipping. I think Syracuse and San Diego State.
Syracuse, San Diego is who I have next. San Diego State about minus 3, 139.
Okay, so for me, this line opened at 2 and went to 3. So San Diego State is actually a 3-point favorite now. A lot of public bettors will say, hey, San Diego State is a 3-point favorite over Syracuse. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that actually does make sense. San Diego State plays in the Mountain West. They won the title in the tournament. I think they're a better team, and that's a better conference than people realize. They were a top 10 team in offense and defense last year. So a lot of, from what I was listening to, a lot of sharps were kind of salivating at the opportunity to bet on them last year when, the NCAA tournament did not happen. But they play with a very slow pace, so they play with poise, and I like that. I like that in the postseason when a lot of games tend to slow down anyway, so they're used to that style. They also shoot the 3-ball really well, right below 38%. This game is just more about San Diego State for me. Syracuse was one of the final teams in the bracket to get the call, so I like that. They were peaking at the right time. They won 6 of the last 9. But I think this is going to be a lower-paced game. It is a lower expected total, and that, for me, that favors San Diego State. So this is a lean, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a play yet. If it is, it'll probably just be a one-unit play because I like when the line started at 2, and I'm regretting that I didn't get that line.
Right.
I like a little less at 3, and if it goes up any more, then I'm going to like it a little less. But right now, I would lean San Diego State getting 3 points.
Well, this is why we get the podcast out nice and early so people can get those lines before the public gets all over them on Friday here. I'm going to slight disagreement on the total here. The ACC, not that good as we know it, right? And Syracuse has not been a great away team from home. But the thing that trumps that is Jim Boeheim is 18-12 against the spread in this tournament since 2006. And that, I think that's going to trump everything here. And Syracuse did okay. They had a really close game that they played in the ACC tournament. Both teams, they play faster than their tempo shows. And if you look at seconds per possession, it's a good amount. The reason that San Diego State's unders have been hitting a lot, and I did lose on some of them, there's the Mountain West officiating has not been calling a lot of fouls, and I think it's different in the tournament. I think you're going to see some whistles. You're going to see Syracuse flailing their bodies into San Diego State, getting cheap fouls that probably shouldn't be called anyway. So, and that's the way I see it. I have San Diego State winning and covering the spread by 74-70. So it's not like I'm running to the window to bet San Diego State, but I got a 5-point difference between between the total of 139 and I have it at 144. So I'm going to bet the total here for a couple stars on the over for 2 stars here. Let's move on to the next game then, and I believe it's North Texas, since we covered Wisconsin already. North Texas is facing Purdue. Purdue -7, total is 127. Purdue could make a little noise here in the tournament. I like where they're seated. I think they have a shot at advancing. Baylor's going to be their biggest hurdle if they can get to the Sweet 16, obviously. But if they can get past Baylor, they have a legitimate shot at beating Ohio State, whom they already beat twice this year, right? The tournament game went to overtime, but they beat Ohio State twice. So they're in a nice little spot there. It's just getting by Baylor, in my opinion. Of course, they have to beat North Texas, but I think that Conference USA is not a good basketball conference. And when North Texas stepped up to the plate against better teams, they lost all of them. And North Texas's best win was against number 82 Louisiana Tech, who they split with also, and I think Louisiana Tech's overrated as well. But my numbers with a Purdue game, I don't love betting Purdue as a favorite, even though they're 9-6 against the spread as a favorite this year. I don't know why I don't like them. There's just something I think they kind of quit when they're up by like 5 or 7 points, just from my eye test. I do have Purdue winning this game 66-58. So if it gets lower, I'll have to bet Purdue. But right now, I'm leaning the under. I'm leaning it, and I just think 127 is it's almost getting up there to where I can play it, because I have it at 123 or 124. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like it going under too. This one is going to be a Lucas Oil, so should be interesting. I don't think that North Texas is used to that. I would dare say, but I think this is a good spot to buy low on Purdue. They kind of, they've been quiet for a little while now, at least, as far as the in-conference tournament goes. And a good opportunity to sell high on North Texas. So I would lean the Purdue side.
All right. Who do we have next on your side of the bracket? I think it is Morehead State versus West Virginia.
Yeah. Last but not least, I believe, for my slate anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So West Virginia, pretty consistent team all year, although they're kind of limping into the postseason here. They're 1-3 straight up in the last 4, 0-4. ATS, but they're also 13-14 ATS on the entire year. I think highlight West Virginia. I think they have a deep roster, but I think this line is a little too big. I would lean on Morehead State. I do not think that they're that fluky of a team. They beat Belmont twice this year. The second time, obviously, in the tournament, or in the conference tournament at the end. But the first time they beat the Bruins was actually really impressive for me, because that was off of Belmont's first loss. I think they had like a 21-game winning streak at that point. So Belmont lost against Eastern Kentucky, and so that was a really good spot for the Bruins to kind of get up in that next game, and they still got beat by Morehead State. I think Morehead State is better than people think, in the sense that they led the OVC in points allowed and rebounds. They are 11th. Got a lot of stats in front of me here, Keith, and I'm trying to
it's
juggle them all.
It's all good.
They're 214th on KenPom on offense, and that's one thing that scares me. Though West Virginia is 11th on offense, so I wonder if they can keep pace. I don't know if they're going to be used to that level of competition on the defensive end, at least trying to defend that. But I would still lean here with Morehead State. West Virginia it feels like they're limping in a little bit to me, and this is a big spot for Morehead State to try to flex a little bit and do something in the tournament.
All right, so you have a lean to Morehead State. I probably have a lean to West Virginia, and it sounds like neither of us are playing it here. The reason that is because West Virginia is kind of coming in. They were so hot at the end of the year, then Oklahoma State beat them 2 super close games, right?
Yep.
And it was in the tournament. And then I'd like Huggy Bear there, Bob Huggins. I think he's a good coach, and I think he's going to get them motivated to play. Now, their offense is almost unstoppable, in my opinion. I think you have to score with West Virginia in most cases, but their defense really stinks. That's the thing about West Virginia. I mean, their defense has not been that efficient to me. They rank 72nd on KenPom, but they do allow 46.9% of the shots to go in. It's that's top 43. It's nothing spectacular here. So, I mean, I can see them trying to put one on Morehead State here, kind of like that revenge. Hey, I'm legitimate too. Quit talking about Oklahoma State. Quit talking about Baylor. I'm here. Look at me type first appearance. Yep. And so that's what I'm worried about. And I didn't play this game, but if a bunch of money drove this line down, it's 12 now. If it gets down to 11, then I would consider playing West Virginia here. So I have a lean on West Virginia. I think I have.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kev, if I could just say real quickly, I was misreading my notes, and I actually leaned the same way as you. And I was going to say the exact same thing about the line. If this goes down at all, I'm going to like West Virginia a lot more. But I actually have in my notes, which, when you're handicapping so many games, maybe you just don't read the notes right. But I'm also going to lean the West Virginia side.
Oh, that happens all the time, my man. So good stuff there. Let's move on to the final game. Winthrop versus Villanova. Villanova is minus 6.5. The total is 141.5. I must say that I was really hoping Winthrop got like a Missouri or an Oklahoma in this tournament or something. I am not happy that they have to face a very talented Villanova team who has a chip on their shoulder after losing Colin Gillespie this year. I mean, that's not the situation I wanted. Now everybody's going on Winthrop, all the public, they're like, this is the Cinderella, the 5-12 upset. And it's not exactly the way I sports bet, my man. This is just the perfect spot for Jay Wright to say this team's damn good anyway without Gillespie, right? Winthrop is well-rounded, and I mean, look at how good they've done. I think they've lost one game all year, right? Their strongest victory, though, was against number 92 Furman, and that's just, I mean, they haven't played anybody. I mean, that's another big issue here. Villanova is weaker on defense than they normally are. They're vulnerable to the three, allowing 35.3% to go in. But they're just much more talented than Winthrop is. And you're looking at a spread of 6.5 that's probably going to get down to 5.5, man. I mean, think about it. When the money comes in on Winthrop, if you like Nova, do not bet it right now. But I think that this is just going to be a statement game for Nova, and they're going to make Winthrop an example of. And I wanted Winthrop. And, dude, before this tournament got seeded, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to be on Winthrop, whoever they play. Not in this situation. My lean is now to Nova. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I like that. I'm looking at the total here. I'm seeing at 143. I'm also seeing the side of 6.5 with some extra juice taking Winthrop. Yeah, I'm going to look at the total going over possibly, just because Winthrop is capable of putting up a lot of points. Obviously, this is a different defense that they're going to face, but it is an Indiana Farmers, the Coliseum. So as far as I know, that's a smaller venue, so it should be a little less intimidating, at least for Winthrop. I'm gonna look more into that total, but that's what I would lean for now is to the over. No real thoughts about the side until I take a deeper dive into this.
Well, KenPom does have it as a 10-point spread, and you see that 6.5. So they're punishing Nova 3.5 points for the Gillespie injury. That's a pretty big amount for any player, any one player. And so just know that. And situationally, I don't like it. I don't like Nova the next game. I think they're going to crap out because of that injury, but I think this game is just a kind of a get-up spot for them. So, unfortunately, I wanted to be on Winthrop, and I think there's a good little Cinderella-esque team, but I just don't like it in this situation. I guess we'll see what happens, my man. But either way, Chris, you've been awesome on our website, theoddsbreakers.com, just kicking out plays, NBA, UFC, NCAA. Where else are you posting stuff for our listeners to check you out at?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for now. I am also on Farley Bets on Instagram, so I'll share insights on Instagram as well as Twitter. But usually if I'm posting something live on Twitter about maybe a live bet or some kind of insider analysis, it's also going to be posted on Twitter and Instagram. So it's really at both sites. But that's where I am, mostly at theoddsbreakers.com, and I have I'm very great and very gracious, very thankful to you, Kier, for giving me the opportunity, and I've enjoyed it. And I hope we get some more wins and some more fatter wallets for our viewers and listeners as we approach the tournament, man. I'm excited to finally get this rolling after a 2-year hiatus.
All right, man. Well, you know what? You're doing a great job here, and we appreciate all the work that you're putting in as well. Make sure you guys follow Chris Farley on Twitter at Chris R. Farley 1. Now it's time to get into a little Haslam metrics with Erik Haslam. And now I'm very excited to welcome back an analytics and bracket specialist to the Odds Breakers. You know him from his amazing work over at HaslamMetrics.com. Very excited to bring back Mr. Erik Haslam from Haslam Metrics. You can follow him on Twitter at HaslamMetrics. The madness is here, Erik. How you doing this week?
Doing fantastic. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Just pounding through these games, drinking coffee, staying up late, getting up early.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, God, it is. And there's just so many little tidbits to go on, and then throw COVID, throw COVID into the situation, and, here we are. But, this is what we look forward to, and I'm very excited to talk to you about Haslam Metrics here and where that bracket lines up, because, that's originally, as you talked, the whole reason it started years ago was to fill out some of those perfect brackets. So I'm very excited to get into that aspect of it. But a couple things with this tournament. I mean, all the games are around the Indianapolis area. I think it's kind of interesting that you don't have the travel aspect of it. It used to be like Gonzaga would be in the West bracket, and that would be great for them. But I think they were rewarded a little bit anyway. We'll get into that. And, there's no really South or West, East, North type travel spots. It's kind of all these teams are kind of in the same situation. So I would wonder if that benefits chalk or if it hurts chalk a little bit. Have you thought about that?
I haven't really thought about it too much, but I would think that, I think those bigger teams probably travel a little bit better. So I'm thinking that maybe it would hurt chalk a little bit more. And, the word that we keep hearing year after year is parity in college basketball. So, I think the parity is increasing. Perhaps the home court advantage this year is a little bit down. So who knows? Maybe we're looking at a year where we get kind of a very strange looking Final Four. We've seen that in the past where 7 and 8 seeds go really, really far. Who knows? Maybe we see something like that again. Really hard to say because people are really picking Gonzaga to be one of the best number one seeds in recent history. You got good teams like Baylor and Illinois on the top line. These are not, these are powerhouses on the one line. Really tough to see people, or really tough to see these teams losing anywhere before the Final Four. But this is why they call it March Madness. Weird stuff happens in this month.
No doubt. And I was talking to you last time, and then that's the weekend right when Baylor was about to be jumped by Michigan.
Yeah.
Now there's both of these teams are leaking a little bit of oil, let's say,
Right.
And Illinois is kind of creeping a little bit. Have you any changes or thoughts about what's going on with those teams?
Well, I think, I think the team to beat Gonzaga is Illinois at this point. I think they have that interior defense that if you're going to stop Gonzaga with fantastic ball movement, great shooters, but this is a team that relies on scoring from the inside, and they're able to get it off the offensive glass, but it's not only that, it's also getting to the rim and acquiring easy shots. That is a tough task with Kofi Cockburn lurking there on the inside. I think defensively on the interior, statistically, Illinois is better suited to defend Gonzaga than Baylor is. And I think you've got to kind of force Gonzaga to be a perimeter team and hope like hell they're not making their shots. And granted, they do make their shots. This is a team that, is really top 25 in three-point percentage. They're tops everywhere. They're so powerful. But if you got to attack them and try to make them into play a different kind of game, you got to take away those easy shots that they acquire. And I think a team more suited to do that is probably Illinois more than Baylor.
Interesting. And, I would wonder, Baylor's defense was great. It kind of went down a little bit. And I wonder if it's just because the Big 12 really got better. Teams like West Virginia, Kansas was desperate at the end and playing out of their minds a little bit, really hot. And then Oklahoma State has really kind of wrapped it up together. So I've been scratching my head a little bit. I don't like how Illinois was put in that side, in that quadrant. I think it was a ripoff that Loyola was an 8 seed. I think against a number 9 Georgia Tech team that just beat Florida State and was really hot at the end, and they just looked, Alvarado there. They just look fantastic this year. I mean, for Georgia Tech, let's just say, and
right.
And it's it just scratches my head is how are they a 9 seed? I mean, how much do you guys hate Porter Moser and Loyola over there, right? And,
right.
And then to stack them against Illinois, I mean, that you're not doing anybody any favors. But my concern for Illinois on that side of the bracket is that not only that they do have to face an Oklahoma State possibly, if that happens, and an Oklahoma State with Cade Cunningham and likely is just very, very good right now. And the reason they lost to Texas was because Texas was shooting like 65% that first half, man.
Yeah.
It was one of those I can't help it, type games. Like, what am I supposed to do? They can shut their eyes behind three and they're hitting freaking everything. And that happens to people,
absolutely.
And so, I mean, that's a tough matchup. Not only that, they have West Virginia, which is a very high power scoring team. And Houston, I don't know what to think about them, but I did watch them play, and they when they're in trouble, they get out of it, and they're playing some killer defense, man. And so, I think Illinois got the shaft the most. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a tough. I mean, I look at this and go, West Virginia. You're looking at Oklahoma State. Don't even discount Tennessee. Tennessee can bring it when they want to. Obviously, I think the one that kind of got lucky out of everybody was probably going to be Gonzaga, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you get a Virginia team that's questionable. I mean, the funny thing I laugh about the Gonzaga bracket is look at the 2, 3, and 4. Number 2, Iowa. Gonzaga handled them. 3, Kansas. Gonzaga handled them. 4, Virginia. Gonzaga handled them. So that was kind of the gift to really show them. Maybe it just happened that way. I don't know, but it's kind of interesting how Gonzaga got a very favorable bracket. It's going to be tough. You look at teams like, I think that West Virginia might have been actually overseeded. What surprised me a little bit on Selection Sunday was, and I think this surprised a lot of people, was how Oklahoma State closed like a freight train, and they were the better team than West Virginia down the stretch. I think they had the better resume. I think they were the better team, the better resume. And Oklahoma State, most people said they're going on the 3 line. West Virginia is a good team, but they're going to come back to the 4, and they flipped them. Mm-hmm. And again, I've spoken to David Warlock, who's in that selection committee room, and his words were, I had a question about St. Bonaventure, and I was talking to him about St. Bonaventure, and his response is, it's what I expect, and it's cool. He said you just got 10 people in the room that are looking under 10 different telescopes, and that's just the nature of it, and they're all going to evaluate things their own way and make their own arguments. And that's how they come to these decisions. So there are a few times where, I consider them a little bit questionable, West Virginia and Oklahoma State being flipped, Missouri landing on the 9 line, things like that. Just scratch your head if you look at the numbers and how they evaluate things. They do things a little bit differently in some situations. And then, for one team, they treat it this way, and then they treat a different team who does the same thing completely different. So there's some inconsistencies involved, but at the same time, I don't go all in and saying the analytics have to decide it either. I like the eye test. It's just the nature of the game. I think people look at the brackets when they come out and they evaluate them and they go, they complain for about an hour and then we, off we go. The tournament starts. So that's the nature of the game every year.
And that's funny. 10 people going in 10 different directions. Why is that? I mean, thank God even though the AP poll is terrible and sports bettors fade that all the time, even with, if you makes you wonder if you didn't have that, maybe they would have Duke in every single year then, and even when Duke was bad, it makes me wonder. It's like, imagine if they didn't even have the AP poll. I mean, what would their thoughts be just misseeding some of these teams? One thing I will say is that I'm usually fighting for a team to get in that didn't. I'm not really doing that this year. I think they kind of, the teams that in are probably correct,
Yeah. The cut line was the cleanest, I thought, in probably about 4 seasons, I thought. There were some tough ones, and I made a mistake in my final bracket. I should have seen this coming. I got too many people talking about Colorado State in my ear, and I should have known that was basically a play-in game in that semifinal in the Mountain West, and Utah State got in over Colorado State. The one that was a surprise, and this could have gone either way. The one that was a surprise was Louisville being left out, because I think all but 9 brackets that were submitted in the bracket matrix had Louisville in. If you would have put Louisville in and had Syracuse out, I probably would have seen that coming a little bit more. But they left Louisville out. Not a lot of people saw that coming. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's close. They're the first team out. Colorado State's the second team out. Other than that, the first four out made sense. If you look at the top, you have 37 at-larges. If you look at the top 41, it makes sense. That's basically what everybody kind of had. So it was a clean-cut line, but, one or two out, it's, debatable.
Well, Louisville, that loss against Wisconsin certainly didn't help them. And
North Carolina, too.
Yeah. It was their last two games, losing to Duke, a team that didn't make it. That was a little bit ugly, especially by 14 points. And the Virginia loss was 10, but it's Virginia, but it's still 10. Yeah, and then they did go to overtime against Duke before that. The North Carolina was a blowout.
They only had one quadrant one win. Syracuse did too, so it's that's why I think it was really close between those two.
I think so too. But Louisville played less games, and so there you go.
Right,
they had that COVID issue, so that's going to do it every time, man. Oh, good. Well, good stuff here. So. All right, well, let's just, before we touch on some of the games, who does Haslametrics have in their Final Four?
Well, the Haslametrics Final Four is always going to be largely chalk. So, if you go strictly based on the baseline of who's going to be favored in these games going with the baseline rankings, no surprise here, the one seeds. It's going to be Gonzaga and Michigan and Baylor and Illinois, with Gonzaga playing Baylor in the final and Gonzaga winning that game by 7. It's not exciting. That's the thing about the analytics, is the analytics are there to, determine who the best teams are. And if you look at who the best teams are right now, it's those 4 teams, the number one seeds. So it's never that exciting. But if you plug them in, a lot of the times I will submit, 2 or 3 brackets in my bracket pools, and the most boring bracket oftentimes wins, because I think you're just going to go to the straight and narrow. It's not exciting. A lot of people who have had the most success with my brackets have used my baseline rankings to pick everything, and then they say I go back and I switch an 11 for a 6 and a 12 and a 5, and I mix this one. Maybe I make this 10 seed go to the Sweet 16. They do that kind of stuff. But I think the idea is, and I tweeted about this a little bit earlier today, making sure that you have balance when you pick a team to go to the championship, or even the Final Four, most likely. I said there, if you looked at the offensive and defensive efficiency rankings of eventual champions over the last 5 tournaments, all 5 of them were top 10 in offensive efficiency. All 5 of them were top 30 in defensive efficiency. So you want to identify those teams that have those characteristics to go the furthest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to tell you, it's really interesting to see Haslametrics and KenPom nailing the 1s and the 2s. And I'm not even saying you guys, they nailed it, not you guys. You guys know more than what they've done in the past. And I will say that a million times over. I think any sports bettor would. But it's interesting, the exact top 8 in Haslametrics and in KenPom, and I didn't look at Bart Torvik, but you guys literally have the 1s and 2 seeds. So I find that kind of fascinating. And
then you jump down. It's funny because, depending on which analytics site you're going to, for example, mine, number 9, UConn. What are they? They're the I forget, 7-line, 8-line, or something like that. Creighton, 5-line. Villanova, 5-line. Virginia, 4-line.
All over the board. After that, all over the board.
Where are the 3s? Where are the 3s and 4s? It's kind of funny. They fall a little bit lower. And sometimes these 3s and 4s don't necessarily have they have a pretty solid resume, but when it comes to the performance rankings, they just don't live up to, the billing. So, maybe you pull a few upsets against 3 and 4s this tournament.
Yeah, maybe you do. Who knows? And here's the thing. The way I kind of looked at it is that I think there is a gap between the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds. It's a big enough gap that there's not a huge gap between the 2 seeds and the 4 seeds, in my opinion. Because like you said about Oklahoma State, that's a 4 seed. I think they're very good as a 4 seed, right? And,
absolutely.
And UConn is a 7 seed. You're right. KenPom has them at 16. You have them at 9. Funny, KenPom's got Wisconsin at 10, which and you have them at 17. I can't buy either of those. I'm sorry. I mean,
and I get it. And I've had people ask me that question. They're like, "How does Wisconsin get up to 17?" And I'm like. Sometimes the efficiency margins just come through, and it's probably a little bit of like that Louisville game. Things like that make them look really, really good, and that resonates. And it's a great conversation you can have with people, and you say, well, how do you handle those situations when you have these monster efficiency margins? Do you bring them down? Do you lower the impact on them? But at the same time, my argument is always they happened. And was Louisville that bad, or was Wisconsin that good? Now there was some injuries that day.
Yes, there was.
And and there are things like that in the analytics that you have to take into account. And this is why you have to use the eye test a little bit, because the analytics, you can't necessarily put a weight and say, well, 3 players on Louisville were out. Make the adjustment of X to defensive efficiency and make the adjustment of Y to offensive efficiency. It's really difficult to do that, especially with such a small sample size. So you just kind of bite the bullet and say, I'm going to treat all my teams as constants across the board. And then, you tell people, use that with a grain of salt. Know that Wisconsin, in your opinion, and you're probably right, Wisconsin's probably not as good as 17, but you never know. I mean, that's the funny thing about it. Sometimes these analytics see something that our eyes don't, and that's why I like the mixture of the two.
Me too. And you can for you, they'll be like, well, you're just a Wisconsin fan, and say, hey, go look at KenPom. They have them at 10. So there you go. There's
and I love that. And I joke and say I hate my friend Shelby Mast says I hate all the teams when he does his bracketology. I'm kind of the same way. In fact, I've been bad mouthing Wisconsin like crazy. I'm like, oh God, here comes a Wisconsin game. I said on Twitter, watching Wisconsin basketball is like watching the movie Cujo. It's going to be 2 hours of your life, and when it's done, you're just going to feel worse about your life. And that's basically what Wisconsin basketball has felt like to me for the last few weeks.
Oh, and watch this. If they beat North Carolina, your Baylor fans are going to be like, dude, how is number 10 and number 17 Wisconsin on Haslametrics playing Baylor?
The funny thing is, this is the seed for Wisconsin. Wisconsin was an 8 seed, 4 years ago. And they won their first and they beat Nova. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to 2000. They were the 8th seed, and they beat number 1 Arizona on the way to the Final Four.
Right.
This is just, man, it's if they get by North Carolina, you just get that feeling. And I can't put my finger on it because I've watched Wisconsin, and there's something wrong with them. Nate Reavers, there's something not right with Nate Reavers. They just the team just hasn't clicked like they did down the stretch last year. I mean, Reavers... Same
players, man, except Pritzl. Was Brevin Pritzl the secret sauce that bailed him out last year? I have no idea.
I don't get it. And I like Johnny Davis in there. I think that's a great addition. And who knows, maybe just like the flip of a switch with Nate Reavers, you saw in that Big Ten tournament, all of a sudden he makes 2 3-pointers in that game. He had gone 6 or 7 games without making a single 3-pointer, and all of a sudden he hits the first 2. He needs to get that confidence back, because when Nate Reavers is there playing confident, he's a good ball player. But he looks, I'll say it, he looks like he has the yips. That's just I agree. The best way I can put it.
He's got to have the yips, and you just can't shake him. And you expect him to shake him by now. And you can't play a player like that. And he's tall, and he's one of the forces inside that you needed. I mean, not that he could handle North Carolina's size, but he could maybe at least do something there.
And that's the problem. We need him with Sharp and Garrison Brooks on the inside. Those guys are big bodies on the inside. Micah Potter cannot do it himself.
No, not at all. And there's nobody else really that big that's playing this year.
Right.
So, I mean, here for Wisconsin, the whole thing, they got to get steals because North Carolina's sloppy with the ball, and they have to try to box them out because North Carolina just slops up a shot, and then they all surround the rim, and then they get the high percentage cleanup. That's
they cannot shoot the ball very well, but they are arguably the best team in the country when it comes to second chance. I think they are the best. If you look at the 2 metrics that I measure, I think they're number. If I'm looking at the ratings here real quick, they're number 2 in both of them, number 2 in the country. So This is a team that lives, and I mean, their bread and butter is getting the offensive rebounds and scoring off of offensive putbacks. They're going to miss a lot of shots. That it's going to be up to those big guys to make sure they hit the glass as hard as they possibly can.
Right. And that's why I put this as a high variance game, because if Wisconsin's hitting the 3 and getting the steals, then North Carolina they're just going to tempo themselves to death. And then, but if Wisconsin's missing the shots, North Carolina blows them out. So I think I don't think it's a close game. I just don't know who it's going to be. It's so high variance to me.
And the experience is so different between the two teams. I mean, the average age in Wisconsin is something like 37, and it feels like it says 37. But North Carolina has all the youngsters, so that plays a part into it as well. So
yeah, these seniors have been playing together for a long time, and you'd be scared to play a team full of seniors with a chip on their shoulder, right? So. There you go. I mean, there's just so many little angles here, man.
That's one of the upset. I got to say it. I mean, Wisconsin has not looked good, but if you're looking for that sleeper, and you see it occasionally, and usually you see it with 7 seeds or 10 seeds beating 2 seeds in the second round, I would say keep an eye on, if you want to possibly sneak some quick points and maybe pick a little bit differently than everybody else. Maybe you go with Wisconsin over a Baylor. People say, oh, it's tough to pick against Baylor. I get it. But, Wisconsin's been in this position before, and they've succeeded in this situation before.
Well, if you're going to fill out a bracket, there's so many people that are going to have chalk. Don't think if you're going to pick Gonzaga and you're going to have the other number 1 seeds in there that you're going to win this thing. It's about these little games. And if you want to, and if you want to pick against Baylor, why not do it early? Because maybe you can get a jump on it. And you know what? And if Baylor does fall out later anyway, before the Elite Eight or before the Final Four, you're still not punished all those points, right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's kind of way I'm looking at Illinois, because I'm going to tell you right now, I love the Big Ten, but I hate how it measured up for Illinois. And I think it's the smartest thing to do is to take them out if I want a chance at winning my bracket challenge, because if I at least take them out and I'm right about it, I'm going to have a jump on a lot of other people. Okay.
Yeah.
And my problem with Michigan is livers.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, maybe Michigan does get it together, but the way they've been playing since February, they lost to Illinois but without Dosumo.
Without Dosumo, yeah,
by 23 points, and then they
got blown out at the barn by Minnesota. Went to overtime against Oakland. You have these stinkers mixed into the season.
Yeah,
and they lost to Michigan State down the stretch.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
I mean, they're down a little bit to Maryland, then they come back and beat Michigan, and then they disappear against Ohio State. And that score, 68-67, wasn't as close as that game actually was, as you were probably watched.
Yeah.
It was, they came back at the end, the Foul City type situation here. But I'm really concerned for Michigan. It doesn't look like Livers is going to play with that stress fracture. I don't think he will, man.
It would not surprise me if he did. I mean, I don't think, and I haven't heard yet, but I don't think you're going to see him in that first game. I don't know why you'd want to use him against the likes of Texas Southern and Mount St. Mary's. I think you're probably going to get as much rest as possible. But I've known people who've had stress fractures. It's very painful, very tough to play through. I think you can play through it. And I think maybe you just say, well, I'm going to gut it out and then probably let it heal on its own in the offseason. But it's not easy to do. I mean, it's you're going to feel it every second that you're out there. So, how effective Livers is going to be, that's a big question.
And so my problem is if I had Illinois on Michigan's side of the bracket, I think I'd be putting Illinois in the Final Four, but not in that side. And I'm not going to take Michigan. I'm taking Florida State, because Florida State, I mean, they did lose to Georgia Tech, but they were out turnovered. 25 turnovers they gave up to 7, and they're still in that game. Georgia Tech stole the ball from them, and they're going to clean that up. The thing is that they're so tall. I think they're going to give Dickinson problems. Okay, if they meet up, and that's the thing for me. And I wouldn't even have a problem if you took UConn in this bracket either, personally.
Yeah, the way they're playing now with Book Night. Yeah, they're the fact that they got the seeding they did, considering they had all those games without Book Night where they kind of struggled, and then he came back and they've looked fantastic since then. Right. So, that's a team that could easily give Alabama a ton of trouble. I don't want to automatically just say, they're going to cream Maryland, because Maryland's capable of winning that game as well. But if UConn gets through, UConn's going to give Alabama some trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually had the Elite Eight game, Florida State versus UConn, in my major bracket. Now, we all fill out a lot of brackets, but I always put one that I put my stamp on for these shows and things like that, right?
I think I may have done the same thing. I did. I actually did. Yep, I do have the same thing.
Great minds, my man. Well, I do, I do have Gonzaga and Baylor on top, and I have Baylor cutting down the nets. And I'll tell you, I think just the way Baylor played in December, January was fantastic, and I just have to imagine them getting back to it. But I'm not going to win a bracket challenge unless I pick somebody other than Gonzaga in my mind. And also, I think that Baylor just had a much harder schedule, and maybe it does get to Gonzaga. I want Gonzaga to win. I think Mark Few deserves it. I do, and I'm going to be rooting for them to win. And so, but at the same time, I think that Gonzaga's got the easiest side. That'd be the last team that I'm going to toy with, right? I think in 90% of my brackets, and I'll probably fill out about 6 to 8 of them, so maybe 80%, whatever you want to say, I'm going to have Gonzaga probably going that whole time. And now the whole thing about them playing Kansas this year, them playing Iowa, them playing Virginia, a lot of people think that's an advantage for Gonzaga. I think that's an advantage for the other teams personally in general, right? I mean, and the way you look at it is like this. If let's just pretend the talent's close on a team, and they can't be that far off. I mean, we're talking like, Iowa, Virginia. They're talented. 2 teams play each other. One gets beat by 20 points. They got to learn what they did a little bit, right? Now, there's not just film. They experienced it. They know where they missed. They know the positions they should have went. They know the ball screens they should have fought through. I think that it's an advantage, but I still think it's the easiest bracket, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. The thing about that is also those games, for the most part, were earlier in the year. And that's the thing. Gonzaga's resume speaks for itself, but it's front-loaded. It's front-loaded with all those big games, and then once they get into WCC play, there's nothing they can do about it. It's just you're playing WCC basketball. You're going to get a challenge a little bit from BYU, but other than that, it should be a laugher in most of those games. So I don't know what the effect is going to be, and this is always the criticism of Gonzaga. I don't necessarily agree with it, but a lot of people think because they get so used to playing those down to those WCC opponents that they're not prepared for March. This is going to be the perfect year to do it. I mean, at this point, they are, from an analytical standpoint, arguably the best team that I've seen since I started Haslametrics in the 2014-15 season. So at this point, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They have everything going their way. They have a cooperative bracket. They are far and away the best team from an analytical standpoint. I mean, I think I have them like a 5-point favorite over Michigan, who's number 2, which is a big gap. They have no excuses. So if they can't do it this year, you're going to go, I'm not going to say they're never going to do it because they used to say the same thing about Virginia, and Virginia eventually did it. But, everything's in their favor this year. They got a very favorable draw in the bracket. They're the best team. The time is now for Gonzaga.
All right. Well, everything but the hiccups, and we'll see if they find a hiccup because a lot of people say, man, I wish my team could lose one game before getting in. I've heard that so many times.
I know, and that's the funny thing about it is like you think of my mind goes back to UNLV. That 1 year
Kentucky when they played us.
That's right.
Before we got lynched by the Zebras against Duke, man. Kentucky was that team, and we took them out. And Kentucky was definitely more talented, but we're just a fantastic team with Bronson Koenig and
Decker and Kaminsky.
Yeah. Kaminsky's my favorite Badger, I think, from all time.
Oh, and what it was so painful was, and I don't know if I said this on your show last time, but I said, beating Kentucky and then losing to Duke was like would be like the 80 Olympic hockey team beating the Soviets and then losing to Finland in the final.
Yes,
and that's what it was.
It was.
And I said that going into the championship, I'm like, you just beat the Soviet Union. You don't lose to Finland in the final. And we lost to Finland in the final.
I know, and Duke didn't deserve it. And that was the worst defensive efficiency team that's won it, thanks to all those fouls to get them back in the game in the second half.
Yeah, so I remember that.
I won't go too far down that tangent.
Grayson Allen.
That dude is not. Yeah, okay.
That was his coming out game.
I probably lost all my Duke fans, by the way, just from this podcast. Just to let you know. So
that's okay.
Well, let's get it.
They're not watching anyway. They're not in the tournament, so they're not watching.
Yeah, they got their Lakers hat on now. That's what
right.
I've been saying. So let's move on to just a couple upsets then, man. Who you got?
Okay.
Who you got as your possibly a Cinderella's coming in the Sweet 16 that we can bet on? Obviously, we're gonna get plus money as sports bettors on those, or just even first round.
Well, here are some things that I kind of, I look at favorable matchups, and I talked about this a little last night with Dylan Bird. But a lot of people, I'm gonna pick a pod in the West of the 5 seed Creighton and the 12 seed UC Santa Barbara, along with the 4 seed Virginia and the 13 Ohio. I think everybody and their brother is going to be picking UC Santa Barbara to beat Creighton. Creighton doesn't have a lot of size, and I think more than anything else, there's questions about Creighton. How much unity there is ever since the whole McDermott thing unfolded and that blew up. Then all of a sudden Creighton looks pretty good in the Big East tournament, and then they get absolutely demolished in the final by Georgetown. And so I think a lot of people are going to have questions about Creighton. So I think a lot of people will probably pick Virginia and UC Santa Barbara. What I talked about with Dylan last night is maybe Creighton's had their game. And I was kind of like, part of me was like, I want Creighton to lose in the final, because if they win the whole thing, they're going to lose in the first round. Maybe they got their bad game out of the way, and you go Creighton to win that game, and then the game beneath that, Virginia and Ohio. Ohio has Jason Preston, who can be a game changer. You look at Virginia top to bottom, and I'm sorry, I'm just not impressed. All the time I watch them, and it's not the same thing when they had Kyle Guy. Yeah. When they had Salt and they had all those other, I'm trying to think all the other names from a couple of years ago. My mind failed me. Diakite, yeah. Mamadi Diakite, yeah. Just loaded with talent there, and Hunter was there as well. That was just, it just doesn't speak to me. That team just doesn't do it for me. So I'm going to pick, and this is kind of my own personal little bracket, I'm probably going to flip it. Just to be a little bit different and go Creighton and Ohio for those winners, and that'll be probably my big upset is picking the 13. Another one I would bring up, and
before you keep going on,
yeah.
There's a sports bettor that's coming on the show, Kyle Hunter, as Ohio in this matchup too. He got some nice plus money, and that thing's going down a little bit. A lot of people are believing in Ohio. Did the Hausers ruin these teams, Michigan State and Virginia? I mean, what the heck happened? The Hausers, very highly touted at Marquette. They leave Marquette for whatever reason. I think it's because what's his name over there was getting too many shots.
Marcus Howard.
Yes, Howard, and he's a ball hog, and he would just flail his body into the people and get fouls and all that stuff anyway. But, you think that the Hausers coming on is going to help Michigan State and Virginia, and all of a sudden the teams are worse than ever, so I don't know what isn't that kind of weird this year?
Yeah, it is. And it was kind of funny. I was talking about this with Ohio, talking about Jason Preston being kind of that game changer, very similar to what Ja Morant was with Murray State. Well, you remember in that game when Ja Morant went off, guess who he beat in that game in the first round?
Marquette.
It was Marquette.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we go. You got another highlight reel player going against one of the Hauser brothers in the first round, and I don't know, maybe they victimize Virginia in that first round.
My God, you talked me into playing Ohio. All right, fine.
No,
it wasn't just you. You were the guy that was the icing on the cake. All right, so just look at it that way. I'm gonna have to play him now. What else do you have for some upsets?
Well, I think, a team, and San Diego State fans are going to do this. Here's the thing about Syracuse. I'm screwed either way with Syracuse. If I have San Diego State winning in the first round, Syracuse is going to the Elite Eight. If I pick Syracuse to go to the Elite Eight, they're going to lose by 30 in the first round. So yeah, it's useless. I might as well just flip a coin and go, well, I'll just work around it and just accept I'm going to lose those points. But, I think Syracuse, the analytics identify West Virginia as an overrated team. If Syracuse can somehow pull off that upset against San Diego State, that's going to energize them playing against a team that I think is overrated. I think Syracuse could make a run in this tournament. And the other team I want to bring up, and this is a key one in the South, is one of the things I talked about earlier today about how the teams that always get to the championship game are the ones that are top 10 in offensive efficiency, or top 30 in defensive efficiency. Actually, originally said top 30. You got to be top 30 in both.
Right.
And if you look at teams that qualify this year that are top 30 in both, you have to go down to the 4 line in the South to find one. Baylor doesn't qualify. Baylor is closer to 40th in defensive efficiency. Ohio State, we've talked about their defense. Their defense is even worse than Iowa's. You go below that, Arkansas. Arkansas doesn't qualify.
Nope.
The 2 teams that actually qualify, and I'm not going to say Villanova. Villanova doesn't qualify, but Villanova's got problems of their own with the loss of Gillespie. I don't know. They're set up to fail.
A lot of people taking Winthrop there, so not me, but others. So
yeah, but the 2 teams that both qualify, one is Purdue, and the other one is, I guess, would be my sleeper, is Texas Tech actually qualifies. And I think Texas Tech gets a favorable draw here. Utah State, you can't look past Utah State because Neemias Queta is a game changer on the inside. But Arkansas, kind of new to the scene. Those teams that are up and coming that really are upstart teams that came out of nowhere and sometimes flame out pretty fast. Oh, you look at the other, then you go the next step. You got, I'm not terribly impressed with Florida or Virginia Tech. We've talked about Ohio State, right for the picking because of their defense. And all of a sudden, you may land in a, who knows, Texas Tech gets to the Elite 8 or beyond if they get a favorable matchup. I've had concerns with Texas Tech in the past. Their resume is questionable. They didn't have the quad 1 wins. It seems like they rely way too much on Mac McClung. The supporting cast isn't always there. But the analytics tell a different story of this is a balanced team that's top 30 in offensive and defensive efficiency. So Chris Beard, another one of those coaches that you look at like a guy like Izzo or even a guy like Boeheim somehow just produces in the tournament. If someone tells me that this is Texas Tech's time to roll, that's a team that could go a long distance if they can get their act together and play to their potential.
Mac McClung is a very electrifying player. He transferred from Georgetown, and I have to wonder how good Georgetown would have been if he stayed there. And it wasn't a grad transfer, and now Georgetown's hot. So good stuff there. I actually have Colgate as a possible Cinderella here. Yeah. And it's funny. And they are going against Texas Tech, but I don't like how Texas Tech finished. But you're right. I mean, they do look good on both offense and defense, top 30, I believe you said.
Yep.
And that checks the mark right there for Texas Tech. But Colgate, they just shoot so well. I see this Arkansas Colgate game as they're either going to just get blown out because they play so fast, or maybe that number 4 in field goal efficiency shows up and they're hitting all their threes coming off the high ball screen, and Arkansas is looking at each other like, what the hell did we do? And that's how these Cinderellas happen. You remember when Buffalo beat Kentucky, right? I mean, that's how this happens. And I kind of have Colgate circled, and it looks like, that spread moved down from 10 to 9. I can see that one. Oral Roberts won't be an easy matchup for Ohio State either, and that's a big fat dog right there. One that I do have is just a straight fade on the Pac-12, and that's Georgetown. That's my 12-5 upset, and I guess I hate saying that because it's always matchup dependent. I hate going by trends just for no reason, but just to say it, Georgetown did play hot at the end, and maybe they're happy and they're done and they crap out completely. But Colorado, I mean, if you look at your away from home metrics here, they're bad. They're -4, -5. Hundreds of per 100 points basically is how you do it. It's efficiency. So it's I'm looking at Georgetown to take out Colorado, and that's one of mine. So I find that interesting there. Did you look at?
I did. I think I stuck with. Again, I kind of look at this and go, you always want the team that I always like to see the correction back to the norm sometimes. And I think Georgetown was one of those teams. And one of the things I noticed about Georgetown is when I'm sitting here on the opening day and it's like 12 o'clock noon on a Wednesday and you're watching these power conference teams, the first game, you always kind of feel bad for the first teams playing. I remember like the ACC was Miami against, I can't remember who they were playing, but you're like, all these guys are just, fodder for the big guns later on down the tournament. In the Big East, the first game that was played in the Big East tournament was Georgetown. That's how much of the gauntlet they ran.
Yeah.
But the question is, have they blown their wads, so to speak, and all of a sudden they've given everything they got, and they got that Big East tournament championship, But will they have enough? Now, granted, you get that week off, and all of a sudden you may regress back to the norm. Colorado is a sneaky team. I think, but you're absolutely right when you look at the away from home metrics. Georgetown is 12th in the country, and a lot of that is largely probably because of how they performed in the Big East tournament.
Yeah.
Colorado 303rd. So, yes, if you want to look at this, momentum right now is all in Georgetown's favor. Over their last 6 to 10 games, 5th in the country in momentum. Colorado, 260th. So if you believe, and there's nothing wrong with making that play, if you believe that trend is going to continue, that is a very favorable bet for Georgetown. If you look at the away from home and you look at the momentum, if that continues, yeah, that's an upset waiting to happen.
And, it's very public to pick a team that it was just hot and they could die. I'm just going to say that right now. But, I mean, at least they won 4 of their last 6 games before the tournament. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and Butler, not good, but Seton Hall was kind of hanging there. Xavier was playing desperate. DePaul, it was easy. But, I think just playing themselves kind of into it, and then they played UConn. They learned from that game a little bit. UConn did drop 98 against them, but then they score 82, and then they kind of figure it out. I thought they did get some friendly fouls against Villanova, and I did watch that game, and I thought maybe Villanova did get shafted a little bit, but they deserve it. But either way, I was happy to see how they finished out. It is a fade against the Pac-12, and that's why. And you're right, that you should not be betting on teams that could regress back to the mean. This is probably a fade team. That's what sports bettors would say. So I will say that, my man. Well, we're running out of time, my man. Who's cutting down the nets? Did you say Gonzaga this year?
Well, God, I think the more I think of this, I think everybody was so in, and I'm thinking, up front, probably 80% of people would pick Gonzaga to win the whole thing. But I think people are starting to I don't know if they're overthinking it or thinking correctly, but I think the team that could beat Gonzaga is going to be Illinois. And I think a lot of people are probably having that same mindset right now. Gonzaga is probably the right pick, probably the smart pick. But I think more and more people are going to say, well, I'm never going to win this pool if I pick Gonzaga. So I think a ton of people now are starting to pick Illinois because they are the team that looks the best. Honestly, they look the best of anybody in this country right now. So I think a lot of people are going to try to be sneaky and pick Illinois, but it's not going to end up being so sneaky. I think at the end, you're probably going to have most people, maybe 70% of people picking Gonzaga, probably, 20% of people picking Illinois, maybe 10-15% for Baylor, then everybody else will just pick something else. But, if Illinois gets their chance to play Gonzaga, I think they give them a lot of trouble. I think they really give them a lot of trouble. And I could easily see Illinois winning this game. And so I'll pick Illinois right now, but anything can happen.
All right. Well, I think it's going to be very interesting for Cockburn to stay out of foul trouble through that very hard quadrant every single game, because if he's out, I don't like Benzamashvili, and I don't like the forward. Yeah. I don't like their forwards, man. I think if Cockburn's in foul trouble, they're going to have some issues, and that's my biggest worry for Illinois, literally, because they don't have that backup to them. They're not as deep.
And Gonzaga has that extra gear. They just have, when they're playing, when they're focused, and that's what I have to remind myself is when they're focused, they look so good. The problem is they don't have to be focused all the time. And it almost seems like there's times when Mark Few is saying, go out there and play with your left hand, because they can. And there are times when they look like they're asleep, but when it's time to play and they're going to get that chance, when they all of a sudden they're going to face a Kansas or an Iowa, or later, maybe a Florida State or a Michigan, you're going to see, I think you're going to see a different Gonzaga team. You're going to see the Gonzaga team at its ceiling. They can dial into that ceiling whenever they want. They just so seldom need to. And I think that fools a lot of people into thinking, oh, look at that. They were down double digits to BYU. They were never that good. See? I think they get complacent. And once you get in this tournament and it's for all the marbles, I can't see this team playing tight. I just see them playing their top game and just rolling over everybody. Illinois, possibly the exception.
All right. Well, we got Gonzaga versus Illinois. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? I mean, everybody else does. We might as well, too.
Great stuff, Erik. Thank you so much for coming on, my man. And our listeners, make sure you check out Erik at HaslamMetrics.com. Make a donation as well. He puts out great information. You can kind of just look at how these teams did away from home. You can look at how they do at home. You can look at how random they are. There's a metric for that. Sometimes like a team like Xavier will play great against a great team and horrible against a bad team. So you have metrics for everything there. I really appreciate you coming on, Erik. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, my friends, if you have any other questions for us or want us to break down the game, please check us out at theoddsbreakers.com. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and go get some winners.